In just one moment, one sentence, your life can change forever. I'm not here to give you complicated strategies or empty promises. I'm here to tell you the story of a man who had nothing, until he heard one message that transformed his entire mindset. And it could do the same for you. Listen carefully, because this could be the moment everything changes for you too. The rain was falling harder than it had all week. Daniel sat on a weathered park bench, his coat soaked through, water dripping from his hair. The city lights blurred in the distance, distorted by the tears in his eyes. Another rejection. Another email that began with the same cold words. "We regret to inform you." He had lost count of how many times he had read that sentence in the past 6 months. His career? Gone. His savings? Almost empty. His self-confidence? Shattered. It wasn't just about money anymore. It was about worth. For months, Daniel had felt like he wasn't enough, not skilled enough, not smart enough, not lucky enough. As he stared at the wet ground, he thought back to every mistake, every missed opportunity, every moment he had hesitated. The thoughts were heavy, pressing down on his chest. What's the point of trying anymore? No matter how hard I work, nothing changes. The rain didn't care. The city didn't care. And Daniel was starting to believe that maybe nobody did. Just as he was about to stand up and leave, something caught his attention. An old man, sitting on the opposite bench, reading a small leather-bound book, completely unforward the storm. It was strange. Everyone else in the park had run for shelter, but this man sat there calmly, as if the rain didn't exist. Daniel watched him for a moment. Something about that quiet confidence, that stillness in chaos, felt unusual. The old man glanced up, their eyes met, and with a slight smile he closed the book and said something Daniel would never forget. "Your life won't change until you change the way you see it." That one sentence hung in the air like lightning. Daniel didn't understand it yet, but deep down, he felt it. This was the moment everything would begin to shift. The rain softened to a steady drizzle, but Daniel barely noticed. That single sentence kept echoing in his mind. Your life won't change until you change the way you see it. Confused, he leaned forward. "What do you mean by that?" he asked, his voice carrying a mix of frustration and desperation. The old man smiled, not the kind of smile that comes from amusement, but the kind that comes from understanding. He shifted slightly on the bench, closing the leather-bound book in his hands. "Tell me, young man," he began, "why do you think you're suffering right now?" Daniel hesitated. "Because everything is falling apart. I've lost my job, my friends barely talk to me, and every effort I make ends in failure. My life is just broken." The old man nodded slowly. "I see. And you think your life will improve when these problems disappear?" Daniel frowned. "Of course. Once I get a job, once I have stability, things will be better." The old man chuckled softly. "That's where you're mistaken. The truth is, the world doesn't change when your circumstances change. The world changes when you change. Every challenge you're facing is not a wall blocking your way. It's a mirror, reflecting who you are and what you must become." Daniel leaned back, puzzled. "A mirror? What does that even mean?" The old man looked out at the misty city skyline. "Life keeps giving you the same lessons until you learn them. Failures, heartbreaks, rejection. They aren't punishments. They are teachers. The sooner you see them as lessons, the faster you grow. The faster you grow, the faster your reality transforms." Daniel was silent. The words were sinking in, each one peeling back a layer of hopelessness. The old man leaned closer. His voice dropped, as if sharing a secret that had taken decades to understand. Every obstacle is a lesson, and every lesson is a step forward. Your mindset is the key. Change it, and everything changes. The rain had stopped completely now. The old man stood, placing the leather-bound book gently on the bench beside Daniel. "Read this when you're ready," he said with a smile. And then he walked away. Daniel watched him disappear into the distance, the words still echoing in his head. Your mindset is the key. That night, Daniel opened the book, and his life would never be the same again. The leather-bound book felt heavier than it looked. Back in his small apartment, Daniel placed it on his desk. His room was dimly lit, cluttered with unopened bills, piles of laundry, and the quiet hum of a life that had been stuck for too long. For hours, he just stared at the book, unsure if opening it would really make a difference. But something in him, something different, told him he had nothing to lose. Slowly, he opened the cover. Inside, there were no fancy graphics, no complicated theories. Just handwritten pages, some neat, some messy, filled with thoughts, short stories, and simple principles. The very first page read, Day 1. Before you try to change your life, change your morning. Daniel raised an eyebrow. Change your morning? That didn't sound like the miracle he was hoping for. But he kept reading. The first hour of your day controls the direction of the rest of it. If you start with negativity, distraction, or doubt, that's what you'll carry forward. If you start with clarity, gratitude, and purpose, you shift the energy of your entire day. The world responds to the energy you bring to it. It sounded almost too simple, but maybe simplicity was the point. The next morning, for the first time in months, Daniel set his alarm an hour earlier. No snooze button, no phone. He made coffee, sat by the window, and just breathed. He read one more page from the book. Write 3 things you're grateful for. Not big things, small ones. Start there. It felt awkward at first, but he wrote, 1. The roof over my head. 2. The coffee in my hand. 3. The stranger who gave me this book. For some reason, that third one made him smile. That day, something was different. Not because the world had changed. It hadn't. His problems were still there. But he felt a little lighter. He spoke more kindly to the cashier. He walked with his head slightly higher. It wasn't magic. It was mindset. And for the first time in months, Daniel thought, maybe I'm not as stuck as I thought. The first few days felt good. Daniel woke up early, wrote his gratitude list, read a few pages of the old man's book, and felt a small but real shift in his energy. But by the end of the first week, resistance crept in. One rainy morning, his alarm went off, and every part of his body screamed to stay in bed. The voice in his head was loud. What's the point? You've tried to change before? You always end up back here. He lay there, staring at the ceiling, tempted to give up. But then, his eyes caught the book on his desk. The page he had left open read, Your old mindset will fight to survive. Every time you push through, you weaken it. Every time you give in, you strengthen it. Choose carefully. Daniel sighed, pulled himself out of bed, and began again. The next challenge came at work interviews. He still faced rejection. He still got the polite, we'll get back to you emails that never came. But now, something was different. Instead of spiraling into self-pity, he started asking himself, what can I learn from this? Sometimes the lesson was about his preparation, sometimes about his communication, sometimes about patience. He started noticing small victories. He spoke with more confidence during interviews. He handled rejection without collapsing emotionally. He even began applying to opportunities he had once felt not good enough for. Every time he made progress, no matter how small, he wrote it down. One evening, as he reviewed his notes, he realized something profound. He was no longer waiting for life to change so he could feel better. He was changing himself, and life was slowly responding. The journey was far from over, but for the first time, Daniel wasn't just surviving. He was building. Weeks turned into months. Daniel's days looked different now. The early mornings had become a habit, the gratitude lists a ritual. He wasn't perfect. Some days he stumbled. Some days the old doubts returned, but he always got back on track. Then came that day. He was walking home from a part-time job at a bookstore, a job he had taken just to keep himself afloat, when his phone buzzed. Another email. Another job application result. He almost didn't open it. After months of rejections, it was easier to expect disappointment. But this one was different. Dear Daniel, we were impressed by your persistence and positive attitude during the interview process. We'd like to offer you the position of... Daniel stopped in the middle of the street, reading the sentence again and again. It wasn't just the job offer. It was what it represented. This wasn't luck. This wasn't a random miracle. This was the result of every single morning he had chosen to get up when it was easier to quit. Every rejection he had treated as a lesson. Every small victory he had written down. When he walked into his apartment that evening, he didn't feel like the same man who had once sat in the rain feeling like a failure. He felt transformed. That night, as he placed the old man's book back on the shelf, he noticed something on the very last page, a sentence written in faded ink. When the lesson changes your life, pass it on. Daniel smiled. He didn't know when or how, but he knew one day he would share this message with someone else who needed it, just like the old man had shared it with him. Months passed. Daniel's life looked nothing like it had before. He wasn't just earning more money. He had a sense of purpose, confidence, and calm that no job title could measure. But he never forgot the night in the rain. He never forgot the old man. One evening, after work, Daniel stopped at the same park where everything had changed. The bench was still there, worn and weathered. As he sat down, he noticed someone across the park. A young man, maybe in his 20s, sat slouched forward, his face buried in his hands. Daniel didn't know his story, but he recognized the posture. He recognized the heaviness. Something in his heart told him what to do. He walked over and sat beside the young man. For a moment there was silence, just the sound of the wind rustling the leaves. Then Daniel spoke, almost repeating the exact words he'd once heard. Your life won't change until you change the way you see it. The young man looked up, confused. Daniel smiled, just like the old man had smiled at him. Everything you're going through isn't the end of your story. It's a lesson, and every lesson is a step forward. The young man didn't respond right away, but Daniel could see it in his eyes, the same spark he had felt that rainy night. As Daniel stood to leave, he pulled a small leather-bound book from his bag, the very one the old man had given him. Read this when you're ready, he said, placing it on the bench. And with that, Daniel walked away, just as the old man had once walked away from him. The moral of this story is that your life is not defined by your circumstances, but by how you choose to respond to them. Every obstacle you face is not there to stop you. It's there to prepare you. The moment you decide to see challenges as lessons, your mindset shifts. And when your mindset shifts, your life changes. Remember, every lesson is a step forward. Start climbing today.